Platformers are among one of the most timeless genres in all of gaming. I mean, you can still go back and play classics such as Super Mario Bros., Banjo-Kazooie, and the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy and still have a lot of fun all of these years later. These games are often easy to jump into but so satisfying to master. And that's the thing, there are some truly exceptional platformers out now that's really fine-tuned the genre. And in this video, we're going to talk about the top 20 Nintendo Switch platformers, both 2D as well as 3D. We're not going to talk about Metroidvanias on this list, however, so we're not going to talk about games like Hollow Knight or anything like that. I do have a separate list for those type of games if you want to check that out, as that is one of my favorite genres. Per usual though, with so many great games on the Switch, there is a chance that I miss one of your favorite games, and if I do, make sure to let me know in the comments below. With that said, let's get right into the list. And at number 20, I have Yoshi's Crafted World, which is an insanely adorable platformer. Yoshi has always been such a cute Nintendo character, and they really managed to show that in Crafted World. I love the art style in this game with that cardboard look, and how the levels are multi-layered. It's got a nice mix of puzzles by using Yoshi's eggs, with some enjoyable platforming. And as you would expect, Crafted World has a great level design being a first-party Nintendo game. However, this is one of the easier entries on this list. It doesn't really offer much in the way of a challenge, and that's one reason I think this game is perfect for more of a younger audience or someone who maybe is new to the genre. If you grew up playing old Nintendo 64 platformers, then new Super Lucky's Tale might be the perfect game for you. This is a 3D collectathon platformer where you try to collect an assortment of items to advance to the next level or world. This game just does so many things right, and it really harked back to my childhood. I love the art direction, especially with the wonderfully made characters. It's got nice, tight, smooth controls, and it's just a fun experience from beginning to end. It doesn't exactly reinvent platforming or anything like that, but everything it does masterfully. Now, here's a really interesting platformer, Gris. The first thing you're going to notice about Gris is its striking water-painted visuals, but there's so much more to this game than just how it looks. It is a truly engrossing experience as its story unfolds. It's not a very long game or even a very challenging game, but it doesn't really have to be. Gris can be explained as a work of art. It's got an astonishing amount of depth to it, and it beautifully portrays emotions. So while yes, you can finish Gris in about 4 hours, it's an experience that will stick with you for far longer. And up next, we have one of the all-time great action platformers, Mega Man 11. This is a long-running franchise and a perfect example of how timeless this genre truly is. All these years later, Mega Man 11 has proven once again why its formula is so addictively fun. It's really got everything you want in a good action platformer. It's challenging, it has well-made boss encounters, and fun overall combat. It doesn't excel at only one thing, but it just does them all so well. Now, Mega Man 11 does have some time-based mechanics that may make the game a little easier, though if you want more of a challenge, you can simply choose not to use those powers. Now, I actually have two games here, both created by the same developer, Playdead. Both of these games are similar in a lot of ways, but both Inside and Limbo are superb puzzle platformers. These are probably some of the most unique games on this list, as they're slower paced with a heavy emphasis on their atmosphere. These are very dark, mysterious, and ominous games with terrifying environments and enemies. Even the death animations can be really grotesque with these games. At the same time, these are some of the more memorable platformers ever made with clever puzzles, and they have well-made stories that keep you thinking long after you finish them. Shovel Knight is a special game in a sense that its creators just understood exactly why fans love games in the 90s so much. Truthfully, if you told me that Shovel Knight released in the 90s, and if I didn't already know, I would have probably believed you. Shovel Knight is about as retro as you can possibly get with modern games. It's also extremely fun. It's kind of a strange concept if you think about it, a knight that fights with a shovel, but it works, and it works well. Your shovel can be used as a whacking tool as well as a platforming one. You can use your shovel to bounce on enemies and jump even higher, which makes for some fun platforming. It's very challenging, and it's just a very well-made, polished game. To add to that, Treasure Trove comes with various campaigns and characters that completely changes how the game is played. And next up, I have one of the most unique 3D platformers that I've ever played personally, Snake Pass. In most platformers, jumping is your main mechanic, but instead with Snake Pass, you actually have to learn to maneuver as a snake. I love the creativity in this game. It's quite a bit different as you'll have to slither and wrap yourself around various objects to reach your destination. This is actually a collectathon platformer, and some of the coins that you have to collect can be a little bit difficult, but it always feels good and fair in my opinion. I also have to really applaud the music in this game. The soundtrack was done by the genius David Wise, which is well known for Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and it just adds an extra layer of goodness to Snake Pass. I think because this game is so different though, it really hit home with me. And here I have Splasher, a criminally overlooked game. I really have no idea why more people don't know about Splasher because this game is a truly phenomenal 2D platformer. The way I would explain Splasher is being a combination of something like Rayman with Portal. And what I mean by that is that it's centered around a unique mechanic. It's a fast-paced game, which is a dream for speedrunners, but the main draw to this game is splashing different types of paint on walls to change their properties. Each color of paint will have their own individual property. One might be sticky, allowing you to run on ceilings, whereas another will cause you to jump to higher locations. This is a brilliant mechanic and truly a lot of fun. Without a doubt, Sonic is one of the most well-known gaming icons of all time, and at one point, he was Nintendo's biggest rival. Interestingly enough though, now Sonic Mania is one of the best platformers on the Nintendo Switch all these years later. It's kind of ironic to think about, but Sonic Mania actually goes back to Sonic's roots. This is a very retro game, playing like Sonic would back in the 90s. There is an added layer here though with multiple playable characters and even a multiplayer mode. You can play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, among others, which all have their own unique abilities. What really stands out with Sonic Mania though is its well-crafted levels. There's so many different paths to take in order to find the best route. And for that, I do think Sonic Mania has a lot of replayability, and if you do like classic Sonic games, this is the perfect throwback. And here I have two different games made by the legendary Edmund McMillen. Both Super Meat Boy and The End Is Nigh are brutally difficult platformers that will absolutely test your expertise in the genre. And even though, yes, these games are very difficult, they're always fair, and because you respawn instantaneously, it never really gets frustrating. You just learn from your mistake, move on, and try again. They also have a very interesting sense of humor. It's a little quirky and dark, but strictly from its mechanics alone, you're not going to find much better than either of these games. Now, if I had to recommend only one of these, I do prefer Super Meat Boy thanks to its art style and sense of humor, but The End Is Nigh is equally as good, and I'd highly recommend that game as well. And to round off the top 10, I have Yooka-Laylee. Now, there's two different games here, both worth your time. You have the original Yooka-Laylee that's inspired by Banjo-Kazooie. It is made by much of the same developers, so it plays very similar, being a 3D collectathon platformer. Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair, though, is inspired by Donkey Kong Country and is a 2D platformer. Again, it does have some of the same developers that worked on the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy, but it does have one big change. It's got an almost Zelda-like overworld to it, where you can complete various puzzles, and in both cases, Impossible Lair is absolutely excellent. I do think Impossible Lair is the better game out of the two, and it's actually one of my favorite games on this list. Really, I think 1 through 10 on this list are so close in terms of quality that you can easily swap them in and out, and Impossible Lair is just brilliant. It's got amazing music, responsive platforming, brilliant level design, fun characters, and just everything feels so good in this game. Now here we have our first compilation, Spyro Reignited. I grew up playing these games, so I was thrilled when they decided to remake these games and release them as a bundle trilogy. And even though these games were originally made in the 90s, they still feel great to play all these years later, and thanks to the upgraded visuals, they look better than ever. On top of that, considering that you have 3 games to play, this is one of the more content-heavy releases you can buy for the Switch. As for the gameplay though, that's where Spyro really excels. Spyro is yet another collectathon platformer, but nothing else plays quite like it. You know, you have this super memorable mascot that can breathe fire, charges enemies, and even glide around. I mean, really, there's just so many memorable characters in this game. There's also lots of mini games to play, and there's just always something new to keep the gameplay fresh throughout all 3 entries. These are must-own games for fans of 3D platformers. Easily all-time greats within the genre. Next up, I have Cuphead, which is a brutally difficult run-and-gun platformer. This is definitely one of the more visually striking games on this list, which almost embodies old Disney cartoons such as Mickey Mouse. It looks beautiful in motion, but don't let the visuals fool you. This game is infamously difficult. You're gonna die in Cuphead, and you're gonna die a lot, but it's always a lot of fun, especially the boss encounters. I think Cuphead does have some of the better boss battles within the genre. Cuphead isn't just a platformer though, but it also has several aerial shoot-'em-up sections, which keeps it fresh throughout its playthrough. Cuphead's also one of the better cooperative games on the Switch, so if you have somebody else that wants to play with you, then Cuphead might be the way to go. Again though, just be prepared for a challenge. So Hat in Time may be the best new IP in terms of 3D platformers made within the last decade, and possibly even longer than that. Oftentimes with these new 3D platformers, something feels as if it's missing, but Hat in Time is a special case. It simply nails it. It recreates the magic of older 3D collectathon platformers with its charming and lovable characters and worlds. I love the variety and creativity in Hat in Time. There's a plethora of worlds with various environments, it has well-made level design, it has strong platforming mechanics, and the art style is visually pleasing as well. In terms of 3D platformers, I would say Hat in Time ranks right up there with some of the all-time greats. I think when it comes to just pure platforming, I'm not sure I've played a more fun and rewarding game than Rayman Legends. It has some of the most responsive mechanics with some truly fun and creative levels. You have wall jumping, different attacks to both dismantle your foes, as well as keep that high speed going. It can be a pretty fast-paced game once you master its controls. One thing that always really stood out to me with this game though is its musical level sequences. Basically every action that you make in a given level creates music, and it's such a satisfying combination. It does have a weird and wacky sense of humor that I quite like, and the overall pace and challenge feels perfect to me. Rayman Legends without a doubt is an amazing game that you definitely need to play if you like this genre even slightly. Now, growing up, some of my favorite games were the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy. I am a big fan of Rare, but Nintendo did a good job at bringing this franchise back with Retro Studios. They took the original formula with animal companions, unique boss encounters, some of the best music I've ever heard in any video game, and having multiple playable characters. Each monkey has their own individual abilities to mix up its platforming. Donkey Kong himself can roll around and pound on the ground, whereas Diddy can use his jetpack to extend your jump slightly. The two combined makes things just a little easier, and you're gonna need that because this is a challenging game. And because this game is so good, it just begs you to master, especially with its speedruns. I think its speedruns are some of the most fun experiences I've had with any platformer to date. Celeste is a game that really took me by surprise. You jump, dash in whichever direction you want, and then climb. It's simple on the surface, but the combination is actually brilliant thanks to its masterful level design where it constantly throws new obstacles your way. It's yet another very challenging and rewarding game, but where Celeste really surprised me was with its story. I was not expecting that, as stories aren't usually something that you think about when it comes to platformers. But here with Celeste, it has a deep and engaging story that I think fans will really enjoy. So not only is the gameplay excellent, but you also have a great story on top of that. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to talk about Metroidvania games on this list, but Ori's an exception because its platforming really is that good. There's a heavy focus on platforming in Ori. I've always said this, but I think Ori can stand toe-to-toe with some of the best platformers ever made, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps really shows that, especially with the boss sequences that will absolutely test how good your platforming skills truly are. To add to that though, both Ori games have memorable and emotional stories, and of course they have fun combat as you upgrade your abilities and explore the world. Now, you do have two games here, which I do recommend both. Ori and the Blind Forest is the first game with a beautifully told story, and of course it does have fun gameplay. The sequel though continues the story and really just makes everything even better. And I mean, just look at these games. It's easy to see that they're absolutely stunning with a striking art style. Both of these games are instant classics in my opinion, and I would consider them a masterpiece. Crash Bandicoot may have started as a PlayStation franchise, but now you can play the entire remade trilogy on the Nintendo Switch, and you can get the newest entry as well, Crash Bandicoot 4. And let me tell you, you need to play all 4 of these games. Obviously, the original trilogy is beloved for a reason. They can be brutally difficult, but nothing else plays like them even after all these years. Interestingly enough though, Crash 4 absolutely blew me away. If you've been following this channel for a while, you probably know that I do hold Crash 4 in high regards. I do 100% believe it's the best new 3D platformer I've played in probably a decade and even more. It takes the original Crash formula, which again is difficult, but they added all of these different abilities by changing masks that really takes it to the next level. In some stages you can manipulate gravity to where you can walk on a ceiling, or in other stages you can control time to slow it down. This adds so much variety to the platforming formula, and then on top of that, you also have several playable characters. I think Crash 4 offers the most variety out of any platformer that I can think of, and there is a lot of content in this game. Now, I'm just speaking from my own perspective, but this is one of the most fun platformers I've played probably ever. Again though, I recommend all 4 games. Get the Insane Trilogy as well as Crash 4. That will keep you busy for a long time to come. And at the number 1 spot, I have none other than the Nintendo mascot himself, Mario. Now the problem, I can't just go with one game here. I didn't really want to litter the entire list with Mario, so I decided to just wrap them all up in one spot so I can shine some light on some other games as well. But here you have Mario Odyssey, which if I were to just recommend one game, that would be my go-to. It's an all-time great 3D platformer where you can take control of different characters by throwing Mario's hat on said creature or object. It's a very fun mechanic to play around with. I also like Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, which is kind of a mix of old school Mario Bros. Games mixed in with 3D platforming. You also have New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for fans of 2D platformers. That's a fun game to play in local multiplayer, if not a little chaotic. And for you more creative fans, you have Mario Maker 2, where you can simply just create your own Mario games. The Switch even has Mario 3D All-Stars, which is a compiled collection of classic 3D Mario games. Unfortunately, that was a limited time release, but if you're lucky, you might be able to find a physical copy at a reasonable price online. The Switch, though, might be the ultimate Mario console, and there's a reason these games are so beloved. They're incredibly creative with their worlds, they're easy to jump into for fans of all ages, and they're just a lot of fun. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but if I missed any of your favorite games, let me know in the comments below. With that said, make sure to hit that bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.